Agreed to speak to us after 10 o'clock here at the Results Operations Centre in Pretoria. Back to Johannesburg now, Tsepiso and Griselda.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen. We'll be crossing back to him again to give us more details as we see that board light up in the next couple of minutes into hours. Let's move on now to chat to some of our reporters who are still on the ground. Police officers had to escort IEC officials at the Marquard in the Free State today. IEC spokesperson Mmathabo Rasengane said 90 officials had to be escorted after service delivery protests caused disruptions at 12 voting stations. They eventually opened at around 10 a.m. No arrests were made and nobody was injured. SABC reporter Aphumelele Mdlalane is in Bethlehem in the Free State. Very good evening to you, Aphumelele. What's the situation where you are?
A very good evening to you, Griselda. We've seen a lot of people going to the polls, of course, braving this rainy weather. As I'm talking to you right now, it's heavily pouring here in Bethlehem, and it's been, of course, the situation here in the Eastern Free State. We managed to talk to the IEC where they could tell us that also delayed some other voting stations when it comes to the processes of voting. They opened at least at around 10 o'clock. Checking the IEC voting stations here in Bethlehem at around 8, and before they could close around 9 o'clock, we could see that, and also understanding from what they were telling us that there has not been glitches whatsoever. People were streaming in. Also later on we could see that people that couldn't make it during the day because they went to work, they managed to make to exercise their right before, of course, at 9 o'clock. We also went to Marquard, where we know that the situation, the municipality is distressed there, talking to residents, and they were happy to say, of course, it's important for them to vote, because if they want to see a change, they should exercise their right. So far, we can say that things have been running smoothly. Earlier on, I also went to Marquard, where we know it's our hotspot in the Free State, where protesters, they made a vow that no one would be going to the polls today to exercise their rights. They will do by all means due to, of course, their dissatisfaction on services in the area. But when we were there early hours of the morning, we could see that elderly people, surprisingly, not even youth, we could identify on the queues, but the voting processes went smoothly, but there was high visibility of police in the area. Talking to the Free State manager, Aphumelele Mdlalane, also mentioned that one official from the IEC, of course, was fired following not following procedures during the voting process when it was during the time for special votes. But so far, we could see that everything has went well on our side, even though there was also another incident in Marquard, Griselda, where last night a tent was stolen that was meant to be a voting station, but it was replaced this morning by the IEC officials, and there were no glitches in that area. Ward 35 at Maluti Apufung, the processes of voting went very smoothly. Also in Viljoensgroen, where we could see, we also saw yesterday a hall was torched that was meant to be a voting station. People were arrested there, and they also vowed not to vote. But today my colleague could of course report that voting processes are going smoothly. Police
Well, we do apologize. We seem to have a break in transmission there, of course, with our reporter Aphumelele Mdlalane, who is live to us from Bethlehem in the Free State. She's, of course, monitoring since this morning that part of the country. But, of course, in the